One of the things I love about Montclair is that we've got people from all over the world. In my experience, there's no better way to get to know someone than eating the food that brings them home. So let's cook up special dishes with the people that make up the fabric of our campus.
Cooking with Koppell, Season 3, Episode 2, Take 1.
Hi, I'm Paul Bologna. I'm a professor of biology here at Montclair State University. What led me to Montclair State University was the opportunity to build the marine biology and coastal sciences program here. When the Portuguese man-of-war were washing up on the coast of New Jersey, we were invited to come down, take some interviews for the news, and in fact, one of them was seen over 1 million times on YouTube once it was broadcast and beyond.
Even this tiny tentacle stings. Since he'll be working with them so closely this summer, Dr. Bologna decided to find out what it feels like.
It hurt, not the worst that I had, but I also was much more careful this time.
Today I'm cooking coconut curry with President Koppell, and I chose this dish because it's one of my specialties. And it's the dish that most people who ask for me for the recipe, this is the one that they're requesting alongside there. I can't wait to taste how this is going to turn out.
Okay, Professor, anybody who's read about you and familiar with your work, they probably think we're going to cook jellyfish. But I understand that's not what we're making. So what are we preparing today?
So we're making one of my favorite dishes, and actually made a version of this last night for dinner for my family. Just basically a coconut curry.
So where does this come from?
So this actually comes out of the fact that my older brother was in the Peace Corps in Nepal, and when he came home, he was cooking with curry. Fast forward along, I continue to cook with it. I continue to kind of experiment with it, and over time, this has become sort of my go-to dish.
All right, let's jump in. How are we going to start?
So first, we're going to get our pans kind of heated up here. Want to get our onions in first. So
okay.
Go ahead and grab the oil. We're going to start off with a little bit of oil in there to kind of saute the onions and get it started. And then go ahead and just kind of, not a huge amount, but let them go.
This is my kind of cooking when it's like you put some onions in. That's like my kind of recipe.
And we want these to kind of start, kind of starting to brown a little bit in order to kind of build the flavors affiliated with onions. And so as that sort of starts to heat up and we start to see a little bit of that sizzle coming through there, then the next step that we want to do is make sure that all of our chicken is cooked. So we're going to go ahead and add in some of these chicken thighs. Go ahead, now that your onions might be starting to kind of sizzle.
So, by the way, this dish is the kind of thing that I lived on in graduate school, except I couldn't afford the chicken at that point.
No, I kind of understand all of those things. So.
But yes, I get it. So this is, by the way, a good example that comfort food and dishes that resonate don't have to be based on ethnicity or something like that.
And in many cases, when you think about sort of food as a whole, it's something that's been shared. It's something that you pick up. It's an aspect of cultural awareness and interactions with other individuals, because that's, fundamentally one of the great things about here is there's this huge immigrant group of students that are part of our heritage at the university, and subsequently, sharing in their cultures and understanding those things are equally as important. So as that's kind of like moving through, we're going to take a little bit of the chicken base here, and that just is going to add aspects of sort of salt to the dish.
So I'm wondering if we don't cook shrimp because you have too much respect for crustaceans to eat them. Are you opposed to eating seafood?
Oh, no, not at all.
I did
my master's on lobsters, and I've been studying scallops for a lot longer than I like to admit. So is that kind of works in? You might want to take a little bit of the chicken stock.
Yeah, that'll cut it down a little bit. So this is chicken stock that we're gonna...
And then what we're hoping is that this comes up to a little quick part of a boil to kind of finish and making sure that all your chicken is there.
Got it.
As well as to kind of put that chicken base down alongside there.
How did you find your passion for marine biology?
As an undergraduate, I had taken a course in sort of marine biology, and that following summer, just before the beginning of the fall semester, I had an opportunity to go on a field trip. So 2 professors and a bunch of students loaded up in a van, and we drove from Michigan all the way out to Maine into Massachusetts, and we kind of like did marine biology. And it was really that sort of field-based experience that it was like, wait, I could do this for a living, which led me to graduate school kind of pursuing these things. And it's also one of the reasons that I've been active at taking...
I know, you create those experiences for your students.
That's right.
I
So
mean, that's...
for, almost 15 years, I was taking students down to the U.S. Virgin Islands prior to Hurricane Maria in 17. And more recently, we've been bringing students down to the Galapagos Islands to give them that same sort of inspiration, awe that the living world can really do. And I'm not sure where you're at, but this is one of the time when you start to build the flavors and sort of build it up sort of robust. So you're going to go ahead and take a little bit of curry powder, and some of us like more than others. Again, use whatever you have. I love chickpeas. It's one of the things that, as kids, my boys really love chickpeas because I convinced them it would...
I'm looking at skeptical faces. They're like, your kids
Increase flatulence.
They really love...
And so we call them Chudi beans in my house. Now we've got sort of our endpoints here.
Okay.
So we start to build in the coconut milk.
Okay.
And again, this is a little bit towards your taste and how you like it, but that's going to kind of build that creaminess along. And then the last 2 elements that we have here, which is quinoa as well as lentils, are things that I like to add. And sometimes it's relative to how liquidy your curry is.
Right. So anything we need to do other than let it cook down a little bit?
Nope, this is one of those that, you kind of close it, you put it away, you let it kind of cook and kind of meld alongside there.
So I don't know how any person would decide to move on from lobsters. We already covered that. But you decided to focus on jellyfish. What intrigued you about that?
And that's actually where I came to New Jersey to kind of study those. And that's something that I've been doing for 25 years now, looking at restoration, genetics, things like that for this.
Yes, and of course more important now with storm mitigation.
All these different kinds of things. So as that came about, I had a student that was really interested in sort of what was happening with some of the jellies. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. And we started that project. Well, what effect do they have on the ecosystem? What do they eat? What do they interact with? And that just led to the first steps in understanding jellies.
Is there anything redeeming about jelly? I mean, people think of them as animals that sting. You're talking about them being invasive species. Is there anything good we can say about these things?
Well, it's hard to argue with evolution saying that they've been around 500 million years and they haven't changed much in those endpoints. There's actually some really great things. In biomedical testing, we have what's called GFP, green fluorescent protein, that came out of jellyfish. And if you've ever had a DNA test, if you've ever been tested to see whether or not you have a cancer gene, they use that, they tag that. So in all kinds of molecular biology, et cetera, we wouldn't be where we are today without sort of that humble, lowly jellyfish. I would say that I have the world's greatest job because I get to come back and do what I love every single day of the week. And in particular, sort of engage those underrepresented groups of students that don't look like me. And that, I think, is one of my favorite parts of being at Montclair, is the ability to interact with our students and sort of let them know that there's somebody in their corner that absolutely wants to see greater diversity of thought and research and all the rest of those kinds of things. Because, for a lot of our students, they're missing that feeling. They don't see anybody that looks like them in those positions of power. And so I need to remind them, well, that needs to be you.
Well, I want to talk about what your students do by virtue of having this experience, but I also see that our food is ready to eat. So my suggestion is taste this delicious curry.
I'm all for it.
All right, let's go eat. Okay, so Paul, we're ready to eat our creation. So try in your mind's eye to be a kid. Your brother comes back from Nepal. It's the first time. Let's see how we compare to that, the coconut curry.
Mine's bound to be better.
I appreciate that. That was really good. This is a good autumn dish, like with all those vegetables. Like this is a stick to your ribs kind of meal. So I wanted to pick up on something you were saying when we were cooking. You were talking about the life-changing aspect of participation in the research. It was for you. What happens to the students? I mean, obviously there's not one story, but have you seen the experience affect your students?
So some of my best research students were all C+, B- students in the classroom. And they just always felt sort of inadequate. And you bring them into the research setting and they're gonna make mistakes, there are gonna be problems, it's not gonna work. And those students, when something doesn't go wrong, they immediately go into why. They try to figure out and understand and assess and say, it was me, did I follow the protocols correct? Is there something wrong? Is there something going on? And then I turn around and that A student in the classroom is like, I don't know what to do. That same student that wasn't your top of class in the classroom, that research experience, recognizing that there are different types of experiences, different types of intellect, of qualities, all the rest of that, often turn into A students after getting that opportunity of doing the research, because they gain the confidence that oftentimes was the only thing that they were really lacking. And you get them into that research setting and they become successful by overcoming all the challenges that are there. But all of those challenges are set forth by giving them those opportunities.
No, I love that point, because I think sometimes when people talk about different people thrive in different circumstances, it's like, oh, this is a euphemism that's being used. It's like, oh, you know, that Paul Bologna has a great personality. But you've observed that it's truly a case where some people who thrive in one circumstance actually struggle in some of the applied settings, and it's those students that you've observed who sometimes struggle in the classroom environment. They're better equipped in the laboratory or in the field situation. I'm sure some have followed your footsteps and gone to graduate school and gotten PhDs, which I bet is pretty cool.
Yes, absolutely.
What about professionally? Presumably, they're not all becoming professional marine biologists.
So, you know, the program is interdisciplinary. So they got to know geology, physics, chemistry, and biology. And the largest sort of employers and where most of our students end up are things like environmental consulting companies.
Okay.
Because if you're going to build something, somebody's got to know, is it a forest? What kinds of soils are there? What kinds of environments are there? So you need somebody to be able to go out and do that. That's what those students come about, because they've got these particular backgrounds and they've studied soils and hydrology as well as sort of plant biology, and so they can go in and do that. That's what those employers are looking for, and that's what we're trying to provide.
So it's not necessarily the subject knowledge, it's the ability to be
to
adaptable
do a lot
to the
of different kinds of
tasks
things that are
and
out
to
there.
learn how to do different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Changing gears for a second. So you've gotten repeated articles in the press about your work on jellyfish. So I'm sure that's sort of fun, right? But what does that mean for you as a researcher when there's public interest in some of the work you're doing? Is it fun? Is it a nuisance? Do you like it? Like, does it motivate you? How do you think about that?
I find it's tremendously fun to be able to do that. It's a little bit of shameless self-promotion for myself and Montclair State University to let the people of New Jersey
I approve of that. I approve of that.
that this is a great place to be and that we're doing fantastic things. The other part is public engagement. Being able to go out there and do science and explain it to the general public in a way that they can understand and why this might be important to them as individuals, because an informed public and an interacted public helps solve problems. You know, if the public's not behind a particular issue, it's very difficult to convince a lawmaker or a council to take these issues seriously. So when you can engage the public and you can talk to them at a level that they understand, translating, my level of PhD science to the general public, not a lot of scientists do that well.
Right.
And so I've tried to craft that over my 20 plus years of doing this here at Montclair, so that that message gets out.
Paul, this was fantastic. Thank you for teaching me to cook the dish that your brother taught you many moons ago, and thank you for all the great work you're doing with our students. You're really making a great difference, not just for people who go to the beach in New Jersey, but for countless Montclair students who have found their way to science thanks to your terrific teaching.
I greatly appreciate it. It's been fantastic sharing a meal with you.
Thank you for watching another episode of Cooking with Koppell. Tune in. We're going to be cooking more delicious food in our next episode.